Thanks for tuning in. Tonight we're going to talk about a really common problem with people who have more than one dog in their home. I have Tony and Gaston, our cats, here, but of course the star of the show, Miss America. Sit up and say hello to our friends. There she is. This is the Nickel Family Border Collie, Miss America. And she's, well, you know, she competes actually with our cats for resources. And people have a lot of misconceptions that are based on, well, human behavior. The growling and the snapping between family dogs, even when you're trying to be even-handed. You're trying to give pets an affection or treats, and you know that you can make sure everybody gets the same size piece of pie, the same amount of love and affection, because you know how to split things right down the middle, and your dogs are still squabbling. What's the matter? Don't they know that love and affection in your home is limitless? Actually, they don't know that. They're dogs, and they think differently than we do, especially when it comes to what they regard as scarce resources. Okay, affection, a resource, scarce? Yeah, if you're a dog, that's how you think. So, by the way, does anybody have this problem at home? Oh, Cindy, thank you for coming. And I don't know if you have, oh, thank you very much, Carolyn. Here's the indoor hunting feeder for cats. Tony T, would you care to enjoy that? There you go, Betty. There you go. You know what that means. And Gaston, oh, here he comes. He knows that this is all about, there he goes. Hi, Gaston. Oh, here's the second one for Gaston. Here you go, baby. Here, you can enjoy this one over here. I want to show you guys this gizmo here, too, in a few minutes. So, in case we haven't met, I'm Dr. Jeff Nickel. I'm a veterinarian and many, many years of general medicine. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the problems next week that cats can have with feeding that could stand some improvements. But tonight it's about dogs who squabble and, in fact, sometimes get in some really dangerous fights. And so there's very important ways to understand what they need in terms of our leadership, which is very different in this respect from what you would do with children or subordinates in the workplace. You know, squabbles occur between a lot of people too, but between dogs in the same family, it's actually a rather different creature. So if anybody's had that problem at home, let me know. And in fact, I'll be happy to interrupt what I'm talking about to address those things. But, and if, by the way, if you like what you're seeing, hit the heart button. And if I'm coming through loud and clear, well, hit the heart button too, or hit the wow button or something like that, so that I know that I'm providing information that is useful to you and your pets at home. So, you know, that's why I do these Facebook Lives. I want to make it easy for you to learn how to bring out the best in your pets and make it easy for you to ask questions. So, you know, oftentimes you hear people talk about dogs who try to push the other one away. You're giving affection to one of your dogs, or cats don't do this between themselves. But you might be petting your cat or one of your other dogs, and one of them has to come in, push his way in, and if you have lower status or lower ranking dogs, the appropriate response for them, of course, is to walk away. No, that's cat food, Miss America. We're trying to keep these things separate because this dog, of course, loves cat food, and yes, that's right. You can sit up here and look at the camera. You just had your dinner, by the way. That doesn't matter. Here's why it doesn't matter. Because dogs have a mindset of scarcity. They believe that a famine will occur in about 20 minutes. And if you have only one pet, and it's a dog, you actually don't see that because they're sure that there's no one else in the world who's going to compete with them for the food that you put on the floor for them. But if you have more than one dog, or in the case of this dog, Miss America, oh, thank you for the hearts, she is sure that these cats are going to starve her out. So when she's fed, she's in the room all by herself. And we're right now gambling a little bit because we have these cat food dispensing toys, these indoor hunting feeders, that, you know, maybe she ought to have one, but, you know, we're keeping her at a distance. And for her, this works pretty well. Thank you, Carolyn. So there's another indoor feeder coming. But dogs are sure that they have to live a life of scarcity. Never mind that food is abundant at your home and that love and affection are truly limitless. they regard food and interaction with their leader as high-value, scarce resources. And you really have to try to internalize that into your canine leader brain, because we are never going to succeed in teaching our dogs human followership. We've all been to the parenting meetings or the leadership books that we've read, and we want to apply those things to this species, and it doesn't work most of the time because they regard things very differently. In their canine brain, as highly social as they are with other dogs, when they're living free and scratching out their existence in the wild, or whether they're domestic pets and they share life with another dog or two, they're sure that the resources of food and interaction with a leader are limited. And that works for this species because their canine leaders manage them largely by providing them permission to eat or to interact with the high-ranking leader, or any number of other privileges, including leaving the territory to go out and sniff and investigate, or all right, now these are cats and they have their own snacks, they have to earn that from their leader. They are not allowed, Miss America, they are not allowed to simply do things without getting permission. And so our dogs are looking to us, their leaders, often because they don't want to miss a behavioral cue. If they miss a signal from us, just like missing a signal from a real dog who's their leader in the wild, they might miss out on an opportunity to protect the resources in the territory. They might miss out on an opportunity to go out and scavenge or hunt, a breeding opportunity, an opportunity to simply enjoy play with a higher status dog. Everything for them is an opportunity that they have to earn. And so they get very subtle permission from their leaders that, yeah, you can do this, you can eat, you can have an interaction with me, because me, the great benevolent dictator, sees a behavior or an emotional state that I want repeated. And our dogs look to us, their human leaders, for that same kind of leadership. So if you have two dogs who are competing, squabbling for your attention, it's because they believe that if they don't get all of it right now, they're going to lose out on all of it. It is an all or nothing thing. Now, you can try to teach your dogs to share, like we do with our young children. You can try to make it clear to them that each one will get an identical number of pets on the head, or snuggles or kisses, and you are absolutely not only wasting your time on this other species, but you are actually running the risk of fanning the flames of this competition that can lead to fighting. And by the way, in case I don't mention it, if you have dogs who are fighting, and we all just hate that, right? We don't want to see these dogs we love hurt each other, so we reach in real quick to try to grab their collars, and when they're in a heightened state of agitation and intense hostility, and anything gets in the way, oh, excuse me, gentlemen. Oh, for heaven's sake, they're two cats. You don't have to worry about it. Come on over here, Gaston. Gaston needs another refill, Carolyn. He's coming over here to tell Tony that it's time for him to steal his food. So, yeah, it's like a three-ring circus around here. You notice we only have one dog. That's because we could have gotten Miss America's brother along with her, and we looked at each other and consulted within the family for about 10 seconds and said, no, one's enough. So anyway, in case you've got two dogs or more. So anyway, when these dogs are starting to squabble, if you reach in there, whether you put in your hand or a broom handle, and you obstruct your highly agitated dog's access to the target of her hostility, you are at serious risk of what's called redirected aggression, where the dog simply bites whatever it is and then goes back to its target. So you can get severely injured by reaching into a dog fight. And if your dogs have a tendency for this kind of thing, you should leave a 6-foot or longer leash attached to each dog's collar to drag around the house. We call it a drag line. So if you see a problem developing, the first thing you do is step on the nearer drag line, whichever one's closer, and you pick it up, turn on your heel, and you march to another room out of sight, round a corner, so that there is no line of sight between these two dogs. It's essential please don't reach into it. And here's a question here. There is no question yet, so a couple of people are on the screen there, but if anybody has a question, for heaven's sake, interrupt me. So I wanted to give you, read a question that I got. This is from one of my existing clients. Actually, it's a behavior client, and their dogs have different issues, but now they have a new one. So here's the question. How do I help with competition between dogs for human attention? Ivy is one of their dogs, acts like she owns me, and Hans, their other dog, acts like she owns her husband. How to reduce this behavior? And so my response to her was, and this is Julia, by the way, who sent me this after our last Facebook Live, because she was part of the group. This is a common dilemma. Each of your dogs is bonded to both of you, but they have individually developed a special affection for their own one person. Still, interaction with either leader is considered by each dog to be a high-value, scarce resource. Now, this can be a hard concept for many people to grasp because you know that there's unlimited love and affection at your house, but dogs are genetically programmed for a life of scarcity. They believe that, like food, attention from you and your husband is limited. Thus, they compete for it. Amanda, hold on, let me get to that in just a second. Let me finish this question. A simple way of managing this will be to leave a leash attached to each dog's collar when they're inside. It's probably questionable wisdom to do that outside because they could get it tangled on something and could get into trouble. And typically, these problems seldom occur outside. And there are dogs who fight outside without their people present, and that's a much different situation. What we're talking about right now is competition for attention. Usually happens within the confines of the inside of the house. The artificial constructs of walls and corners of rooms make it very difficult for some dogs because a ready escape isn't easy for them. You just lost your indoor hunting feeder there, Gaston. There you go, buddy. Okay, Miss America, you can snack on the cat food that found its way onto the floor there. So, if they compete or get pushy with each other, you should ignore both of them, pick up either leash, and lead that ignored dog outside or to another room. You can then return to the other dog and enjoy his or her company. So, you know, here's what dogs don't do, is that if you have one of them out of sight in another room, and you, say, take the lower status dog, and you shower that dog with everything imaginable, a dream vacation and a brand new car. That dog is not going to go out to the other dog at recess, you know, out in the yard and say, you know, for Christmas I got a brand new Corvette and I notice you're still pedaling that old broken down tricycle of yours. Dogs don't do that. You don't have to worry that there's going to be some kind of a altercation later because they swap information. They're very much in the moment. And so if they don't see each other, Miss America's crawling under the tripod there, so the camera moved. If they don't see each other getting this high value reward when they're together, it might as well not have happened for the other one. So you separate them, you can do anything you want, okay? So forget correction and punishment, I pointed out, because Ivy and Hans believe that a response from you is never gratis, but always earned. They will think that their behavior has been validated. Ignore what you don't want and set your dog, Miss America, honey, hop up here. That's a big girl. Set your dogs up to succeed, putting one of them elsewhere, and then giving attention to a dog who is calmer and not competing. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. And so, you know, the idea of reprimanding, punishing, spraying with water, swatting, to say, hey, you stop grumbling and trying to take a bite out of your sister or your brother, it's pointless. And in fact, when a dog's in that kind of an agitated, unhealthy emotional state, and you respond at all, including with a sharp reprimand or a punishment, still that dog believes that that response from the leader, from you, was earned in that moment, and you've actually inadvertently worsened the problem. Your job when you see behavior you don't like is to ignore it. And in fact, many times the dogs are competing for attention from their person and you get up and leave the room, the problem evaporates because the high value scarce resource, you, isn't even there anymore. So Amanda, my Gia has injured me 3 times when a strange dog ran up to her. My suspicion, with just that limited amount of information, Amanda, is that you have Gia on a leash because you're a responsible pet parent. And as much as those of us who care for our dogs and want to keep them the heck out of trouble when they're away from home, keep them on a leash, that's a double-edged thing. That leash is what we call another artificial barrier, something like the walls of our house. Dogs don't understand fences and leashes and windows and walls. So here you have Gia on that leash, and she, in essence, like any dog who's leashed, including Miss America when she's leashed, is trapped by the 6-foot radius of that leash. She knows from experience that she cannot engage that other dog the way she might really need to. She can't take off and create distance if she's scared. She can't maneuver and engage in a natural canine interaction off territory, which is really important for dogs. And from a behavioral standpoint, the safest thing you can do with her when she's on leash and another dog comes up is drop the leash, because now she's no longer hampered by that leash and she can engage that other dog in a natural canine way. Obviously, if you're near the road or in some other way that those dogs could get hurt, it's a really bad idea. And in fact, if you don't know that other dog, you could still have a problem, but generally you won't. A safest way you can go about this is in your pocket when you have Gia on a leash walk is carry a product called Spray Shield. You can just Google Spray Shield. I have them. I use them when I take Miss America for walks. Yeah, that's you, sweetheart. Spray Shield is a little aerosol can about this tall, has a little belt clip, and it is not pepper spray, it's not mace, it is compressed citronella, which to you and I has kind of a faint orange scent, and dogs absolutely hate this stuff. So when a dog comes up to you, and this stuff actually is not so much as a spray, it shoots out a bead, and it has a range of about 15 feet. And so when dogs have run up to us, I just take careful aim and spray it right at the other dog's face, and they really hate it and take off. If the other dog's person is nearby, you can explain, look, I've done nothing to hurt your dog because it's only citronella. It won't irritate the eyes. They just can't stand it. And if somehow your dog, Gia, and this other dog get into a fight, you can spray them both. You won't hurt anybody, but both of them just go, oh my goodness, and they're so distracted by the spray shield that you've got a few seconds to take off. And if you need to, you can spray the other dog again. It's got a lot of good squirts in it. I've gotten some good miles out of each one, and when it starts to run low, we just replace them. So Spray Shield is probably your best bet. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that in your house if you have 2 dogs or more who are squabbling, because they can start to learn to associate that kind of misery with that scent that they can't stand with being near each other, and you don't want that. And so again, if you've got this problem at home, you simply grab one of the drag lines, one of the leashes, and you take off and create distance. And if there are 2 people, you each grab one and create distance. But you have to make it an important point to ignore, because any response from you is going to be interpreted by your dogs as validation of behavior that you're trying to get them to abandon. Okay? So the other thing you can do, by the way, is if you've got like a tether point, like a screw hook screwed through the sheetrock into a stud, and you can simply take one of the leashes and droop the handle of the leash onto that hook across the room, and then you can sit back down with the other dog and pet that other dog, and with greater distance, usually, with greater distance, there's less arousal, less agitation. And so you can try that too if you like. Ideally, everybody would be at around a corner and not able to see each other. And here, Carolyn, if you'd like to, I can hand you another indoor hunting feeder and you can reload for these cats. Now, if you're really good at this and beyond simple avoidance, which is what we've talked about, you can actually manage this behavior and teach what we call a response substitution, meaning that instead of simply separating your dogs and ignoring them at these times, you can actually teach them an alternative behavior. In other words, we're going to abandon the old foolishness of mixing it up with each other, and we're going to do something. And if you do this consistently, the dogs can actually look forward to a healthy behavior, which they do on your command when they're together. So here's a gizmo, and it's called a treat and train. I'm holding it up like this, and of course the name on it is backwards. They had changed it to Manners Minder, which is what this one says, but then they changed the name back to treat and train. Now here's what's cool about this thing. You put little treats in this thing, in the top of it, and then you put this on the floor in a location where it always stays. And in fact, here, let me put it on the corner of the table. I push the button, and it shoots out a treat. I'll put this back up here. And let me put it on the corner of the table. Here, Tony T. I'm going to set that right where you are. There, I hope people can see it. So, and it takes a little time, and it comes with an instructional DVD. And you would train your dog separately. You would put only one in the room, and the other 1 or 2 or 3, however many you have, are out in the yard or in another room. So you put this on the floor, and in front of it you put a mat, which always stays there. If you have tile or linoleum floors, you can get one of these inexpensive bathroom mats that have the rubber underneath it, so it doesn't slide around. And then you teach your dog the command place. So when you want your dog to go to the place, and you can have it way the heck across the room, and greater distance is valuable, you can say, Miss America, place. And after she's learned this, she runs over to the mat, and as soon as she's lying down, and there's no light passing beneath her, you have this little remote in your hand, and you push the button, and out comes the treat. And she gets the treat. And then you can keep this button with you while you just have a wonderful time. Excuse me. Yes, you see there's another creature here who might get that treat. And she has learned this, by the way. And so the sound of the treat and train causes her to get a little bit agitated, and she's warning off Gaston to stay away from it. Excuse me. Which, by the way, looks just like aggression, but it's verbal communication. She doesn't want this cat. So, Carolyn, I'm going to hand you the treat and train if I can, and get this out of here, because these cats and this dog, there you go. So you don't have anything to compete for now. That's right. And we took away the bone of contention. Anyway, if that thing is across the room, and you send the dog to it with a verbal command, again, they have to learn this skill, then as soon as she's laying down, she knows that consistently she's going to hear that little beep tone, and out comes the treat, and you're doing it from across the room. And then every now and then you push the button again, and the dog stays glued to it, because it's what we call variable interval reinforcement. They don't know when the treat's going to come. And so they remain focused on this thing, and meantime you're having a nice time. And then if you want to, if you're really good at this, and you've trained your other dog to the treat and train, again, with everybody else out of the room, then you send the second dog, to the treat and train. You send that one to place, and then you have the other one sit with you. Now, this isn't going to work for everybody, but this response substitution, or what we call behavior modification, it's a method of teaching the dog a healthy alternative instead of you having to get up and tether one across the room or put one in the other room. I guess the bottom line of what I'm telling you is, don't treat your dogs like children. In this case, love them like little children, like little people in furry suits, but remember that they're dogs and they need canine leadership. And so if you know from experience that you're going to have squabbling, then you go ahead and set them up to succeed by canine leadership, which is that if they're going to compete, they're separated, so it isn't going to happen. And don't forget about punishment and reprimands and all that stuff. And thank you for the hearts. I'm glad this is valuable information. And if anybody has other questions, you're always welcome to put them on my Facebook page. I'm going to be back next week. We're going to talk about cats again, and this time about feeding cats appropriately. Obesity in cats is an enormous worsening problem. It has a lot to do in many cases with dry food as opposed to canned. And obesity puts them at risk of chronic liver disease, of diabetes, of painful degenerative joint disease, and behavior problems too. And I'll explain all that next week, and what we can do about it to turn this thing around safely and have our cats live much longer, and even more important than a long life, is a happy, comfortable, healthy life. And so we're going to talk about cats and feeding next week. We're planning it for Thursday of next week, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. And by the way, please don't hesitate to share this with your friends. Tag your friends if they have dogs who are squabbling. Some dogs will compete for access to a visitor when they come to the door. We can use the treat and train for that. It's actually what it was designed for. There's a lot of problem with this, and it's actually not that complicated to manage. You just have to be a canine leader, not a human leader with your canine pets. And so, by the way, and finally, if you go to my website, drjeffnicol.com, drjeffnicol.com, you can subscribe to my website, which of course is free. And when you do, by the way, I will send you my free at-home pet first aid and CPR guide. And each week on Tuesday morning, you will get my weekly newspaper column that is printed a few days previously in the Albuquerque Journal, what we call the media. And you'll also get my Facebook Live from the week before. So if you don't get a chance to tune in, it'll show up in your email box every Tuesday morning. And I try to split these evenly between cats and dogs. I try to cover behavioral as well as physical issues, because you want to keep your pets healthy for as long as you can, and you want to steer clear of problems. And if you have trouble, you want to know what to do about it. So again, I hope this is helpful, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week. So all the best. I'm Dr. Jeff Nicol, and all of my pets are scavenging elsewhere, because cats and dogs are both scavengers. They have that in common. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Oh, but there's one more. Well, thank you. Very informative. You're welcome, Joe, and thank you for pointing that out, because I try to be a service, and if nobody says anything, I don't know if I'm doing anything useful. So thanks for that.